All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jackson. Thanks for joining us. We'll give people about a minute just in case anyone's going to join us. Oh, hello, Cameron. Good morning. Nice and bright outside, at least where I am, as I peek out the window. Amelia and Connor, hello, welcome. All right. Well, might as well get started. My name is Andy. I wear bow ties because bow ties are cool. And it's nice to know that I'm one of Nathan and Leo's favorites. That means a lot. So the Science Center is still closed, but every day at 10:30, Curiosity Corner Live, we bring you science content, demonstrations, design challenges, all sorts of cool stuff. So at 10:30 every day, make sure you come back. We have cool stuff for you. And at 3 o'clock, we have some follow-up videos, and we sort of add an extra bit to the 10:30 video. So if you're not already subscribed and you've been here a while, be sure to subscribe because we post content every single day. Today, we are going to talk about nanotechnology. Has anyone ever heard the term nanotechnology or the term nano before? And if you have, do you know sort of what it is in terms of like what is nanotechnology? What do you think of when someone says nanotechnology? Because I have a lot of cool little things that can show you exactly what nanotechnology is. Super small technology, yeah. So nanotechnology is technology that is using, they usually call them nanoparticles, these tiny, tiny little bits that are about the size of an atom or a molecule. So we will break down the name nanotechnology because that nano, that is the start. It's called a prefix. And there's a bunch of different prefixes. There's a bunch of different starts to words that we use in science. One is the centimeter. So I have a ruler here. It's in centimeters and millimeters. A centimeter, a good idea of how big a centimeter is, a nickel is about 2 centimeters wide. So this nickel is about 2 centimeters wide. And then a penny is 1 millimeter wide. So a centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. So it takes 100 centimeters to make 1 meter. Centi, actually, that word, that started the word centi, means 1/100th. So it takes 100 centimeters to make 1 meter. This is a meter. It's about a meter, and it barely fits in screen. So this thing's about a meter wide. So if you divided this thing up into 100 pieces that are exactly the same size, each one of those pieces would be a centimeter. Now a millimeter, I mentioned, is the width of a penny. So a penny is 1 millimeter thick. And milli is another prefix that means 1,000th. So you would take 1,000 millimeters to make 1 meter. So if you divided this thing up into 1,000 pieces that were the same size, it would be a millimeter thick. Each piece would be a millimeter thick. That is a lot. So millimeters are very, very tiny. Nanometers are even tinier. So the word nano actually means dwarf, and it's a Greek word. Centi and milli are Latin. They come from Latin. Nano means 1 billionth. So it takes 1 billion nanometers to make 1 meter. So to put that into perspective, billion is 1 with 9 zeros after it. So I will show you what a billion looks like. That is, nano is 1 divided by 1 billion. If you had a billion cents, which by the way, cents are called cents because you take 100 of them to make $1. If you had a billion cents, you would have $10 million. That is how big a billion is and how tiny 1 billionth or nano is. Yeah, pentameter, right? It's a new measurement. It's you measure with pennies, which actually, I guess a pentameter is 19 millimeters. That's a strange unit of measurement. I'm not going to use that anytime soon. But so nano, it's tiny, very tiny. We can't see it with the naked eye. We can't. We're usually talking about molecules. Here's another perspective for you. A nanometer, 1 nanometer is how far your fingernail grows in 1 second, which is tiny, barely noticeable. It takes 100,000 nanometers to make the thickness of 1 piece of paper. So this piece of paper is 100,000 nanometers thick. So nanometers are tiny. A gold atom is about 1/3 of a nanometer. So it would take 3 gold atoms lined up end to end to make 1 nanometer. So tiny. Speaking of gold, so this paper is going to serve a double purpose here. Nanotechnology is really tiny, but it shows things on a visible level. So that's where my gold comes in. So this is a vial of gold flakes. I actually have another camera here, so I'm going to do some technology, some fancy technology switching. Boom. See if it works. It worked. Bada bing, bada boom. So I have a tiny camera here. You're going to focus on my... I don't know if it will. So I have this gold... Well, maybe this thing doesn't autofocus. Actually, you know what? I'll just stick with this camera. See if it... Well, you can see that it's vaguely gold colored. Even though it's kind of blurry. It is gold. And we can see that it's gold. Each individual flake of gold is about maybe a couple millimeters wide. So each flake of this gold is visible. Now, I have some other gold here that is a little different. So this is also gold, and you can see it says 80 nm on the vial here. The color is a little strange because of the camera, but it looks kind of brown, kind of a rusty brownish color, which if you had a bunch of particles of gold in a liquid, that's kind of the color you would expect. But the reason it says 80 nm, nm stands for nanometers. Each little piece of gold that's suspended in this bottle is 80 nanometers thick. For comparison, light happens in wavelengths. And I actually have a picture here of what a wavelength is. So a wavelength is, When you have a wave, you have the crests of the wave where it gets really high and the trough, which is where it gets low. A wavelength is the distance between the peaks of two different waves. So when light does its thing, it moves in waves. There it is. It moves in waves. And at the top of each wave, that's the wavelength, and you measure two waves. The top of the wave is the peak, and you measure two peaks, and that's the wavelength. Wavelengths of light are between 400 and 700 nm or nanometers. This is 80. So it's smaller than a wavelength of light, which means it can mess with the light. If light goes through this, it'll behave a little weird. So it's bouncing off and making that orange color. If I shed even more light, I have a big lamp here. If I shed more light on this, we'll see if we can get some... Oh, come on. Okay. Well, trying to see if a different color appears. Oh, there it is. So on the right, you can kind of see a glimmer of pink light, and there's a little bit of pink light inside this bottle. So when light goes through it, maybe if I hold it behind it, no, that just drowns the light. When light goes through this bottle, it's purple or pink. When it bounces off, it's orange. You can kind of see that when I hold it up normally. So when the light goes through it, it gets scattered by the nanoparticles of gold that are suspended in this bottle. I have another one here, and it's even smaller. It's 20 nanometers, and you can see it's transparent. This one's kind of cloudy, but this one, smaller particles, light's able to go through it more easily, and it makes red. And light bouncing off of it is red. Light going through it is red. So the 20 nanometer sized particles, these tiny, tiny particles that are 20 nanometers thick, is scattering light toward red, which makes it scatter towards 700 nanometer wavelength, making it red. Now, these are examples of nanotechnology using tiny little nanoparticles of gold, but this was actually in use in the Middle Ages, this kind of technology. They didn't know that it was nanotechnology, but they used it in stained glass. So I have a piece of stained glass here, and I have another piece of stained glass here. You can see this one's orange, and this one's red. This one uses 80 nanometer sized particles, and this one uses 20 nanometer sized particles. So in the Middle Ages, they figured out that if they did some chemical reactions with gold, they could make some special colors of stained glass. You can make all sorts of different colors with stained glass, not just orange and red. You can make blue with gold. If you suspend the particles the right way, you can make blue out of gold particles, which is really wild. So I'm going to go back to my normal camera. Beep. There I am. So there you have it. Nanotechnology, technology at a very, very tiny, tiny scale, which brings me to the end of this installment of Curiosity Corner Live. As much as I would love to talk about nanotechnology forever, unfortunately, only have so much time. But I have a challenge for you at home. There's lots of different ways that nanotechnology can be used. For instance, I explained how it can be used in something like stained glass. But think to yourself and talk with your friends, talk with your family. How else do you think nanotechnology can be used? Do you think nanotechnology is being used today? So what I want you to do is think about that, talk about that, and then post that on social media. Use our hashtag Stay Curious, CLE. That way we'll know what you're talking about, that we are talking about our topic today. So nanotechnology, how can nanotechnology be used in the world, and is it being used in the world today? That's my challenge to you. Come back at 3 o'clock. We'll talk about the answers, and I'll show you some other ways that nanotechnology is being used today. Oh, well, I sort of gave away that it is being used today, but I'll tell you how in the 3 o'clock video. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's Andy, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and stay curious, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.